Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of sources and give you the fast track to being well-informed.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're diving into a topic that, on the surface, seems deceptively simple.
Very much so.
We are talking about the small actions we repeat every single day. We're talking about habits.
Right, and it's a critical topic because these habits are basically the default settings of your life.
That's a great way to put it. The source material we have today is this really fascinating exploration of personal routines.
And it goes deep. I mean, the sources show how stability, productivity, even your mental health are all shaped by these tiny, often unconscious choices.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Based on our deep dive, a habit is essentially a small repeated action that your brain has, automated to save effort.
The basic habit loop. A cue, a response, and then a reward.
Exactly. And our mission today isn't just to list good habits, it's to really pull out the surprising variety, some of the conflicting advice, and the actionable strategies for making a change.
So by the end of this, you'll start seeing your daily routine not just as a schedule, but as a series of really crucial decisions.
Absolutely. So let's start where the day starts, the moment you wake up.
Which the sources identify as the most volatile cue of all.
It really is. Those first few moments can set the psychological tone for the whole day. You might love that quiet atmosphere or the warm light.
But the first decision you make is often where things go wrong.
Let me guess.
The phone.
The phone. It has to be the most destructive modern morning habit.
Our sources were pretty unanimous on that. And it's not just what doctors say about the blue light for your eyes.
No, it's the cognitive jolt. You haven't even had a single thought about your own day yet.
And bam, you're hit with emails, headlines, social media.
It immediately moves you from a rested state into a state of reaction. You're not acting, you're reacting to the world's demands.
So what's the alternative? The sources offered some really simple countermeasures.
Simple, but powerful. And it's all about reducing friction. So instead of reaching for the phone,
Drink a glass of water. Yes. But the key is placing that water right next to your bed the night before.
so it requires zero effort.
Zero effort. That's the crucial part. It's not about willpower. It's about designing your environment.
That's a huge point. And another great example of that is making the bed.
It seems so small. Trivial, almost.
But what's fascinating is how that tiny act impacts your perception. You've completed the first task of the day.
And you get this little hit of a reward chemical, a sense of being organized. It's a classic small win that can cascade into the rest of your day.
Then, of course, we move on to fueling up. Breakfast.
And the sources showed such a huge spectrum here.
Right, from simple yogurt or cereal to the more, traditional toast and tea.
But there was one habit that was pretty consistent across the board.
Oh, I know this one. The coffee.
The coffee, as one source put it, more coffee than we like to admit.
It's the essential cue for the working day to begin.
And once we're fueled, that flows right into our commute. These are habits we repeat hundreds of times a year.
And the choice of commute walking, bus, driving it, really dictates your sensory input for the morning.
Walking gives you fresh air, a chance to observe things.
Whereas a lot of people use that time for sensory consumption. They'll listen to pop music
Or catch up on the news, which can be a tricky habit.
How so?
Well, while it's informative, you can sometimes end up carrying the stress of the world's problems with you right into the office.
So your commute is either preparing you calmly for work or potentially ramping up your anxiety before you even sit down.
Precisely.
Okay, so that brings us to work itself. This is where those structural habits are either, built or broken.
A big part of our lives, for sure.
And the sources really contrast the effective habits with the common traps. On the one hand, you have the power of starting the day with a to-do list.
Which is really an exercise in what's called cognitive load reduction.
Meaning?
You're moving all that stuff out of your short-term memory and onto paper. It frees up your brain for the actual hard work.
But then, on the other hand, there's that painful, common struggle of rushing.
Always trying to be on time for meetings, but always scrambling at the last second.
That rushing habit is just this little micro burst of stress repeated over and over.
And it's usually because of poor transition cues, not leaving enough buffer time between your tasks.
And that stress just feeds back into the loop, making it harder to focus.
So these tiny work habits, good or bad, they really determine how organized and stress-free your productivity is.
It's not just at work either. We see these patterns in errands, like shopping.
Oh, the shopping example was great.
Some people always shop on Fridays, right? Because it's easier to just stop on the way home.
That's a perfect example of habit stacking. You attach a new routine onto an existing one, The drive home is the cue.
I think the big finding here was that by understanding these cues, you just learn so much more about yourself.
Right. You start to see how your environment and your schedule are subtly calling the shots.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The wind down, the evening routines.
How we relax can make or break the next day.
For sure. Some people have this great habit of just sitting quietly for a few minutes after work.
Deliberate buffer zone.
Yeah, it creates this mental separation. It stops work stress from bleeding into your home life.
And then you see this huge spectrum of activity. You've got the really dedicated exercise habits.
Right. Hitting the gym, running on the treadmill, lifting weights.
Which is a habit where the short-term effort is really high, but the long-term reward is massive.
And then you have the opposite end.
The sources had a great line about people who joke that walking to the kitchen is their main workout.
Which is all about seeking that immediate low-effort reward.
It continues with dinner, too. Cooking versus ordering food.
And the dishes, washing them right away, or the bad habit.
Leaving them for the next morning. It creates a negative cue clutter, chaos, that just starts your next day off on the wrong foot.
So how do we actually unwind?
The-
Find that, mental reset.
A lot of it comes down to entertainment. The sources broke it down pretty well.
Some people watch comedies for a guaranteed laugh.
Others follow sports, which can be a social connection, or nature documentaries, which are very low-stakes, calming visuals.
But the most critical part of the wind down is the bedtime routine.
Absolutely. The distinction here is huge.
The sources say reading, even for just a few minutes, helps the brain transition into a resting state.
It's a low-stimulus activity, and you have to contrast that with the one bad habit so many of us are trying to break.
Checking the phone in bed again.
It's the ultimate brain confuser. You're giving it this high-intensity input right as you're trying to signal it's time to shut down.
And this all extends to the weekend, too, right?
Right. Weekends show interesting patterns. We relax our consistency, we sleep late, have slow mornings with coffee.
Maybe play sports occasionally.
But even the chores, like cleaning, are a habit. It's either a consistent weekly thing or it's reactive. You only do it when the mess becomes an unbearable cue.
Okay, so that brings us to the most critical part. How do we actually change the habits we don't like?
This is what it's all about.
Because we all have them. The sources gave some really relatable examples. Nail biting, always losing your sunglasses.
Or that daily habit of buying expensive coffee that just drains your bank account.
So how do we fundamentally change them?
The sources were pretty much in agreement on this. Changing these patterns is hard, but the secret is to lower the activation energy.
Activation energy.
The effort required to start the new good behavior. We usually fail because we aim way too high, way too fast.
Right. So this is where we get past the generic start small advice. We need actual tactics.
And the sources provide them. One key strategy is what's sometimes called the 2-minute rule.
Yes.
If a new habit takes less than 2 minutes to do, you do it. So instead of run every day, your new habit is just put on my running shoes.
That's it.
That's it. Because once you've started the behavior,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to continue. You've overcome the initial friction.
Okay, so let's apply that. You want to read more?
The goal isn't read a chapter. It's read one page.
You want to drink more water.
Don't rely on discipline. Make the cue inescapable. Keep a full glass on your desk at all times.
It's these tiny, low-friction steps that actually build the consistency.
Consistency is everything. And the sources also remind us that, not all habits are about productivity.
Some are just part of who we are.
Exactly. The things we've done since childhood, like putting your shoes on in the same order every time. Or the fun ones, like singing loudly in the car.
It shows that habits are fundamental to our identity, not just what we get done.
Right. But for change, the power comes from the consistency of the repetition. That's what benefits the mind and body.
So when we boil it all down, what does this all mean?
I think the key takeaway is that really reflecting on your habits, using these frameworks of cues and activation energy, is the best way to understand your own sort of mental programming.
And that's the first step toward actual change.
For sure. And practice, build progress. The sources made a great point that learning anything complex, like a new language, is really just a habit.
It's built by practicing a little every single day.
That compound effect of small, consistent effort, that's the real insight.
So the most critical part isn't the finish line. It's the commitment to that first tiny step. Don't think about the full run.
Just put on the shoes.
Now, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought based on what we've explored today. You already have one good habit, and you almost certainly have one you'd like to improve.
So the question is,
Which of those small daily choices will you commit to being perfectly consistent on? Making sure that first action takes 2 minutes or less, starting tomorrow. Focus only on that cue and that first tiny response.